Hey there, Vikings Nation. Get ready to dive deep into the Skol state of mind. Join our host, D. Woods, as he shares his unfiltered takes on all things Vikings, from expert game analysis to player controversies and everything in between. If you love the Vikings for better or worse, then you've come to the right place. So grab a drink and let's talk all things purple and gold. This is the Skol State of Mind podcast.
Welcome to the Skol State of Mind podcast. As you know, I'm your host, D. Woods. I've been gone for a while, so I decided to come back at the right time to give you my opinion on what's going on with the Minnesota Vikings. So let's dig into it. We all know Kirk Cousins had a horrific injury Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. We won the game, but we lost our quarterback. I mean, it was kind of hard for me to see him go down like that. I'm a big Kirk guy, and one of the biggest things I always say about Kirk is his best ability is availability. Well, he's not going to be available for the foreseeable future. He's going to be gone this season and maybe, next season. I mean, if you really think about it, you really can't say next season because Kirk doesn't have a contract on the books next season. He got $28 million on the books and dead money, but there's no contract, so there's no guarantee is Kirk's going to be back next year. I mean, I just really, as a fan of the team, as a fan of Kirk, I really didn't want to see him go out like that. So we really don't know what's going to happen, with Kirk in the future. Only thing we can do right now is basically hope, basically hope that he gets well and, recovers good. So, just wish Kirk the best. But he was playing at the top of his game, for the past couple of weeks and did help bring his team back to 500. But, we gotta keep going. You all notice it's the next guy up mentality. I mean, it's hard to say sometimes, like when players get hurt, that you just basically step over them and, next guy up, it's still a mental, aspect to this game going forward. But we got to have that mentality of like, next guy up, because the team can't really sit back and soak, because of what happened to Kirk. This team still can get a playoff spot. They can still, make some noise, but they just got to gear up together and maybe band together and, and make this team complete. And whoever plays our quarterback, going forward, they got to help give him the tools and, band behind him and give him the resources and everything like that. So, that quarterback can help this team succeed. But I mean, who would have thought, we'd be saying this about Kirk Cousins, next guy up mentality, because I mean, the boy never gets hurt. Kirk is always available. I think he's only missed maybe like one game since his career with the Vikings, and that was basically because of COVID. So, I mean, next guy up mentality. So let's move on a little bit. Now we're about to get to the nitty-gritty on how I feel about the situation. Jeren Hall or Josh Dobbs. Now, look, it's a lot of chatter going on out there on X, on social media, or whatever, that Dobbs is going to come in and be the starter to this team. In my opinion, I don't think so. I think about it like this. I think about it from a logical standpoint, and I'm going to break it down to you. Going into the Green Bay game, the Vikings dressed two quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, starting quarterback. Second quarterback was Jeren Hall, right? Jeren Hall went in the game, finished the game because he was the only quarterback available. I know you want to hear about Mullins and, Sean Mannion. Sean Mannion's on the practice squad, and we already know that Sean Mannion just can't play. Now, Mullins has been on the IR for the past 3 weeks, and this is his fourth week on that four-week IR spot. So after this game, he's scheduled to come back. But you got to think about like this, though. It's a back injury. So nobody really knows how long he's going to be on this IR spot, if he's going to come back and healthy. So do you think the team is in the best interest to kind of rush him back just because? And I'm saying it like this, like, for example, Chris Reed, right? Chris Reed went on IR for the beginning of the season. He's just now coming back now. And this is like the basically ninth week of the season. So just because a guy goes on IR for 4 weeks, there's no guarantee that he's going to be back and be healthy in time after those 4 weeks. So with that being said, with Kirk Cousins going down, Mullins being on IR, and you don't know what's happening with that, and Sean Mannion can't play, you only have one quarterback on your roster, which is Jeren Hall. So it makes more sense for you to go out and sign a backup not sign a backup and acquire a backup via trade to help your team out, because you only really have one quarterback on your roster. I understand that Josh Dobbs basically started, since the season started for Arizona and stuff like that. But you got to think about it like this. With Kyler Murray being healthy, Josh Dobbs in Arizona became expendable. Not saying like, oh, he's trash, nobody need him, but they're basically preparing for Kyler Murray to come and start, later in the season. So they got Tune. I'm not sure of his name or whatever. They got Tune that's basically going to start for this week or whatever. So Josh Dobbs became extendable. So if you think about it from a GM standpoint, it makes more sense for you to go ahead and give up a little draft capital, 6, 7 round pick or whatever, acquire a starting caliber quarterback to back up your young quarterback. Now, I personally feel like Jeren Hall is the guy. Quasi and KOC, they drafted him. So I feel like, he's the guy. And Dobbs is just there as a security blanket because, like I said before, you don't have any backup. So let's keep it moving. All right. Jeren Hall's development. And I think this is like really, really important. Like, I feel like this, if they're going to go in the Jeren Hall direction, then basically let him develop. And when I say let him develop, that means you're going to have to take the good, the bad, and the ugly with Jeren Hall's development. There's not many quarterbacks that come out there, first round picks, second round picks, wherever they drafted, where they just come out and they play lights out and they don't really make mistakes and stuff like that. Because you got to think about it, when you make mistakes, that opens up the realm for you to get better and build on that mistake. So I feel like with the Minnesota Vikings going forward, if they decide to go in the Jeren Hall direction, just starting for the rest of the year, and basically what you get out of it is basically a great learning experience. Yes, we still want to win some games going forward and stuff like that, but I feel like when you start a quarterback and you don't let them take their lumps and they learn from it, you kind of like kill their whole confidence, going forward. And I do feel like at the end of the day, like KOC was touted as this quote unquote quarterback whisperer. So with that being said, let's see what KLC can do with a guy like Jeren Hall. And with Jeren Hall, it's like people are saying like, oh, he's young, he don't know, or whatever. The guy's 25 years old, married with a kid. And basically he took 2 years off of football, to do his Mormon thing or whatever. So that's 2 years that he, didn't play or whatever. You can say like, oh, it's 2 years, he didn't get experience like that, but you're dealing with a grown man. Like, he's a grown man. He's not like a 21-year-old kid, coming out of college and just thrust in situation. Like, he's a grown man. And I really feel like I have confidence in Jeren Hall because I feel like, you only get these opportunities so many times to kind of like showcase yourself and basically, become that guy. And I feel like Jeren Hall is old enough to basically say, you know what, I have this opportunity in front of me. Let me make the best of it. And, I'm going to go forward. But I just really hope that the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, and his coaching staff don't stunt his growth, throw him out there, and then be like, oh, he didn't do this right, so we're going to throw in Dobbs or whatever. Just let Dobbs be the backup because he's a backup. Like, he started this year in Arizona, but at the end of the day, Dobbs is backup. You don't really know what you have in Jeren Hall. Allow him to develop so you can see what you got. All right. Running game problems. If you really sit there and you think about it like this, though, right? Like Brock Purdy had a great year last year. Like he's kind of struggling now because I feel like the 49ers are asking him to do more than what he did last year. But one of the reasons why Brock Purdy had a great year last year is because they had a good running game. You know, Christian McCaffrey running the ball, Deebo Samuel running the ball, whatever. And I feel like for the Vikings to put Jeren Hall in the right situation, they have to fix their running game. I was really hoping that they would have, maybe packaged a second round pick, fourth round pick, and picked up a running back somewhere. So that way they can kind of lean on the running game a little bit with this offensive line that has been playing better. So you don't have to rely on Jeren Hall so much to go down the field and him dropping back. But I just feel, just like I said before, it's like next guy mentality. The running game, like y'all don't watch like Alexander Madison, Cam Akers, Ty Chandler, Nwangu, all four of you guys, even CJ Ham. This running game needs to get better now, because the last thing you want to do going to play any team going forward is basically like, all right, cool. We know they can't run the ball. They got a rookie, quarterback out there who got the jitters or whatever. Man, we just gonna attack him and blitz him like crazy, and and get him off his reads or whatever. But if you have a good running game, you can kind of let that quarterback get some rhythm. You let the offensive linemen get their rhythm, something like that. Like, I don't know what KLC gonna have to do to get this running game together, but the running game needs to come back to Minnesota, and it will make it way more easier on Jeren Hall. And just like I said before, I was really hoping that they trade, for somebody, during the trade deadline, but that didn't happen. I understand it. Like, you really don't want to mortgage the future for maybe a 1-year rental or whatever, but I get it. So let's move on a little bit. The next 4 games. All right, let me bring it up real quick. The next 4 games for the Minnesota Vikings is the Atlanta Falcons, New Orleans Saints, Denver Broncos, and the Chicago Bears. All winnable games, right? I mean, we had Kirk Cousins at quarterback. We know what we got. But what I'm saying is, like, let Jeren Hall cook for these next 4 games. I think these games are still winnable, considering the fact that Minnesota has great skill players, right? They got TJ Hawkinson. The offensive line is playing better. Jordan Addison is coming to his own. KJ Osborne can make plays. I mean, just think you might get Justin Jefferson back along the lines of a week or two. The defense is playing pretty good. They're getting turnovers or stuff like that. So, I mean, just think about the quarterbacks this defense is actually playing. So, you got Atlanta. They're gonna be playing Tyler Heineke. You can Flores can do his thing with that. You got a veteran quarterback with the Saints and Derek Carr. You got another veteran quarterback with the Broncos and Russell Wilson, and then you got Badgett again that you played, a couple of series against Chicago, a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I would say at this point, best case scenario for these 4 games going forward, 2-2. You finish 2-2. I mean, basically, you 6-6, right? You 6-6 going forward, and you can kind of build from there. I mean, bye week could be coming after that sooner or later. So, I mean, I just said you got to build, for these next 2 games. But I'm gonna go back to my point before. I really don't want them to throw Jeren Hall out against Atlanta and things go a little wrong and he gets a little frazzled or whatever, and then they pull him. Keep him in there for these next 4 games. Next 4 games, see what he got. But I just thought I would, come on here and show my face a little bit because I ain't been on here for a while. But Skol Vikings, baby.
Thanks for tuning into the Skol State of Mind podcast. Take a beat to give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. Join us next time, and don't forget to follow Skol State of Mind on all social media platforms to keep up with all the news and updates. Thanks again for listening, and as always, Skol Vikings!